Hey guys, it's so nice to see you again. I know for you've been seeing my face every week. All of you, my 26 avid subscribers who love to stay up to date with the real fake facts of the world and stay on the ball about what is cute and what isn't cute, but mostly what is cute in the world. I want to say hello. I've missed you guys, and you're probably thinking, well, Patrick, I watch Laugh at Pat every week, and I've been seeing you every week. So, like, how have you been missing us? Well, through a little thing that we call movie magic, I actually have not been producing any videos for like the last 2 months. I worked my titties off all through the month of May to create all of that stellar content that garnered such beautiful organic engagement as 3 thumbs up. Yeah, that's right. I got 3 likes on one of my videos. So, kind of a big deal. Basically, headed toward monetization really soon. Now, you're asking yourself, wow, so Pat, you made all these videos in the month of May, and that's what we've been watching all summer. We didn't know, and yeah, that basically, every summer for the last 3 summers, I have gone up to Alaska to work as a commercial salmon fisherman. And so today's podcast is a podcast about life, fisherman life. And I'm gonna, tell you guys all about, I don't know, fishing stuff, what it was like going up there, um, how the fishery works and everything. I took some of the money I made and I invested it with an artist that I'm really excited to be working with, who made some really cool, really beautiful graphics that I'm super excited to share with you guys. I mean, these graphics, yeah, they're really good. So I think it's going to be a interesting, informative. You know what? Let's change informative to educational. I think it's going to be an interesting, educational, and possibly, if you enjoy my brand of personality, humorous podcast and video. So I think we could all learn something. Hopefully, we can all laugh a little bit. And I think it's going to be a fun podcast. And now you're probably wondering, well, what's happening right now? Is this not the podcast? Yes, it is. It's the intro to the podcast. Look, my friend Sam Fa, who you can check out his single Heavy Boots on Spotify. I like it. He's like not the biggest fan because it's hard to be a fan of your own work, but like I think it's a good song. He wrote me that the Patchats theme song. What am I gonna just throw that away and not have an intro? Of course, we got to play the theme song. My friend Hazel, she made this lovely Patchat album artwork for me. What am I going to just not take advantage of using that? We have to have an intro so that we can have the whole, like it's like a professional show. This whole YouTube channel is me pretending like this is a professional show and that I'm not living in my parents' garage, currently quarantining with all the windows closed to try to give you the most professional video quality possible with, great clear audio and well, lit video that is making me sweat because it's hot out. But yeah, so, support Sam. I don't think Hazel has anything to promote, but if you're living in Berlin and you meet like a cool girl named Hazel who's from Colorado, just like try to befriend her, buy her a beer. I don't know. Support those people because they've helped me out. And the other reason to have an intro, besides the fact that, we get to dialogue like this, have this little pre-show connection that's so important, is I also wanted to promote my mother, Laura Fannin, has an album that is out now everywhere. I missed the release date while I was gone, so I want to promote it now. It's called Ordinary Beauty, The Bedroom Tapes. It's available on Spotify. You could also buy it from her, I think. Yeah, if you want a hard copy, if you're the type of person who wants a hard copy CD, send me make a comment on this video or send me a message and I'll connect you with her and you can buy one. And because she has the hard copies, or check it out on Spotify. It's a really good album. She also, my other mother, Maggie, plays violin on it. it's a whole thing. Her sister, my aunt Tanya, did the album artwork cover, which is really beautiful. It's cool. Check it out. Ordinary Beauty, The Bedroom Tapes, available now on Spotify by Laura Fannin and Maggie Moore. And yeah, so I mean, come on, we have to have an intro so that I can definitely promote my mom's album. Come on, that's badass. She wrote an album. She like wrote and recorded an album herself. She did all of that shit. Yeah. Anyways, she's a badass. So check out her album. And let's see, was there anything else? No, I think we covered everything for the intro, which means it's time to, go ahead, roll that theme song, throw up that graphic. Let's get into the show. All right, so welcome in to this podcast about life, fisherman's life. Now, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to explain. If you watch the intro, we have some great graphics coming up that I'm excited about. And so when I was considering, where should I start the show? And I was like, well, the Laugh at Pat brand is really all about, journalistic integrity. And so, I thought I would root back to, my foundation, my roots, my journalism background. That's right. I did write over 6 articles for my high school newspaper. Shout out the Jolly Roger. MJ. Anyways, that's a reference for, maybe 4 people who might watch this video. I did write on my school newspaper. And not well, but I was there. And so, when you're thinking about how to approach a story journalistically, I remembered my roots in journalism. I think I've said that about 7 times now. And so I thought, well, we got to consider the who, what, when, where, and why. And I was like, that's a good place to start with this. Then we can get into the nitty-gritty, the details. I can throw to some video, throw up some photos for you guys to enjoy. But let's start with the simple, the who. Okay, well, the who is obviously me. You're on the Laugh at Pat channel. I'm a double only child. I mean, if you couldn't see, it's really all about me on this channel. My content is really me driven. What I'm selling is Pat, So if you didn't get that part, I don't know what you're missing, but I don't know. Get it together. So it's me, but it's also like 20,000 other people who go to Alaska every summer and work in the canneries, work as deckhands on fishing boats, work as skippers on fishing boats, work on tenders, processing and getting fish. Now, I am probably going to use some vocabulary that's a little bit like, well, what is a tender? Is it a chicken tender, or you're talking about the tenderness of a mother? No, it's just another type of boat. We're going to get into the fishing vocabulary. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the who. It's me and about 20,000 other people every summer who are employed working in the Bristol Bay fishery. So then let's go to the what. And now I'm a professional. I made notes here, so let's talk about it. We're talking about Bristol Bay, Alaska, and that's the what. The Bristol Bay Alaska fishery, which is the most profitable fishery in the United States, accounting for nearly half of the wild salmon consumed worldwide. It's worth nearly $1.5 billion annually. And National Geographic ranked it as one of only 3 well-managed fisheries in the world, the other 2 being in Iceland and New Zealand. So it's basically the most sustainable and profitable fishery in the United States, and it's where if you eat wild Alaskan sockeye salmon during the year, there's a very good chance that it came from Bristol Bay. And so that's the what, which brings us to the where. Bristol Bay, Alaska, which I'm gonna throw to a photo of a map here. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm doing that part later, so I'm just kind of making this up as I go along. But let's look at this map of Alaska here, and there should be a little arrow on the screen showing you kind of the general area where Bristol Bay is, kind of along that tail. If the map didn't give you a good idea, the way I like to describe it is my hand is Alaska. This is that tail of islands along it, and this is Bristol Bay right here. Now, the area of Bristol Bay is about the size of the state of Oklahoma, and it's comprised of 4 main rivers, and there's some other rivers as well, smaller ones, and well, we're not going to get into that. But the reason I bring up these 4 rivers is that they're just some of the best names in the world. They're just fun names. Like, we're just gonna say them together. It's a good time. We're gonna enjoy it. Here's the opportunity for our first graphic. Let's throw to that, please. Okay, so the first name here is the Nushagak River, also referred to as the Noosh. The second river here is the Naknek Kwijak River, which, I mean, okay, so the Nushagak, fun. Naknek, also fun. Kwijak, I mean, that's just also a fun name, the Naknek Kwijak. Now, the third river, this is the river that I fish in, is the Igigik River, which Igigik, I mean, that is a fun name, guys. Igigik. 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 I mean, that's just like, that's a fun name. Now, and then the last one is Ugashik, which also fun. Like, there's the word gash in there, which I don't know. I just enjoy gash. And then Ugashik. I don't know. It rolls off the tongue well. I mean, just take a moment, pause the video, sit at home, and just be like, Nushagak, Naknak, Kwijak, Igigak, Ugashik. I mean, like, just if you say it quickly, they're just fun. They're just good, solid names. So anyways, now we know the names of the river, and we know the where. We know the who, we know the what, we know the where. So that brings us to the when, right? So the when is going to be June and July. It's a summertime run, and basically, the salmon fishery is open when the salmon decide to go from the ocean back up the river to the lakes where they spawn and die. So the salmon start to run, as early as the beginning of June 10th, June 15th. This year, my boat, we were fishing, I think, about June 15th or 16th, and caught a few fish. There's not a lot. And then slowly it builds up into a crescendo of just incredible amount of salmon just coming through constantly. I would say we, on my boat, caught 70 or 80% of our catch for the season between July 5th and July 23rd. So it's really just 2-3 weeks of a constant rush of salmon, and you're trying your best to catch as many as you can, and then by the beginning of August it started to peter out. There's still some fish there to be caught, but it's not like during that peak part of the season. And so typically you're home by the beginning of August, depending on how hard you fish and how long you want to stay and everything. So that's the when, June and July. And then the why. Now, the why for me started as basically greed, if I'm being honest. Greed. It was like, oh, this is an opportunity to make a lot of money and to be able to support my lifestyle of vagabonding around the world, traveling, and mooching off of my parents and my girlfriend for their garage and bedroom in their apartment for housing. Anyways, I'm a real catch. I'm a winner. What can I say? But yeah, I mean, it was just like, oh, this is an opportunity where I could travel and, make some money. But, after that's kind of why I got into it. But going up there, it's actually become something that I'm kind of like really proud of and passionate about. It's a really, as I said, like one of the three best managed fisheries in the world, and it's a really well managed, sustainable fishery. And you're doing something. I was raised vegetarian, and I'm basically mostly vegetarian the rest of the year. I claim it, because that's the age that we live in. It's important to claim these things, and so like I'm not one to just take killing an animal or something lightly, and I think this, in a way, eating wild caught salmon is like one of the most ethical animal proteins that you can eat. These salmon got to live a life where they grew up in this lake and went out from the river into the ocean, lived a whole life, and they're coming back to spawn and die. It's the end of their life. They lived most of their life, and they get caught in these nets, and we cut the gills once they come in the boat. It's a fairly quick death, hopefully, no less brutal than death by seal or anything like that. And there's almost no bycatch. Occasionally you'll get a fish called a flounder, and if I can find access to a photo of that, I'll throw one up there. But if not, just Google flounders. They're kind of cool fish, and my understanding is that they can survive actually quite a decent amount of time outside of water. So on my boat, we always just throw them back in, and I think they mostly all survive. And you hardly pull up anything else in your net besides salmon. And so, I over time have really come to believe it's kind of this noble thing that we're providing this, really healthy, sustainable, and ethical animal protein to people, this food source, and that people need, especially in these times. When I was going up there, was like, oh, there's like meat shortages, and we were deemed essential workers because that's collecting food is an essential thing. I mean, so is marijuana apparently, but let's not get into the weeds with that right now. The weeds. Hey, I didn't even mean to do that. See, look at unintentionally hilarious. This show is so good. I can't believe it's only got 26 subscribers. I mean, are you kidding me? This is just high quality content. So that's the why. Probably waxed a little bit too long on the why. There's definitely there's some problems with the fishery. It's not perfect. There's definitely some problems. It's just better than I think what you think of when you think of like commercial fishing. Generally, I feel like it's like the best possible that you can really get for. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So that's the who, when, the where, and the why. And we're gonna move on to the next section here. We're gonna explain some stuff, but I thought the first thing I would do here is show you a little photo or a little video of us motoring out on the water to kind of just, you get a little sense of the boat. This is what it can be like on a beautiful day. And later in the show, I'm going to show you a bad weather day, but here it is, a little taste of boat life. Hello, welcome back from that video of driving on the water in Alaska. We're going to continue this fisherman's podcast about a fisherman's life, but first I wanted to have a nice, cool, refreshing, energizing sip of yerba mate. so refreshing. The organic, clean energy provided by yerba mate powers all the Laugh at Pat videos. Yerba mate is not a sponsor of this show, but they could be if they see this and decide to send me some free yerba mate. Yerba mate, the best clean energy source, preferred by all members of the Laugh at Pat team. Yerba mate. So, we talked about the who and the what and the when and the where and the why and all that journalistic stuff. And I was like, where can we start next? And I was like, I think the first place to start is kind of the basics, the boat. And, the fishing boats in Bristol Bay are called gill netters. So we'll add that to our list of fishing vocabulary. The fishing boats are called gill netters. And, as I said, I invested in some, really nice graphics here. So I want to throw to that now. But here you can see a graphic of a gill netter fishing boat. Now, the main difference between there are two types of fishing boats, basically fiberglass boats and aluminum boats. Now, aluminum boats are typically thought to be a little bit better because it's less easy to poke a hole or create a leak in your boat. Fiberglass boat, if it gets banged around a little bit, it can start to leak. If we look here at the graphic again, you can see that leaking is bad on a fishing boat, or really on any boat. But you don't want water coming in. So that's an important thing to remember while you're learning about fishing and just boat technology. Now, the gill netters have one regulation basically, which is that they can only be 32 feet in length. Now, for those of you who are maybe having some trouble conceptualizing what does 32 feet in length, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, I gave it a Goog. And I found a great website that gave me some comparisons that I hope will help you break it down a little bit more. So, a 32-foot long gill netter is about the size of a London bus. So, are you getting it now? Well, if that didn't help, it's about 4/5 as tall as a telephone pole. So if you sat it on its butt, it would be about 4/5 as tall as a telephone pole. If that didn't help, maybe it's about 3/5 as tall as the Hollywood sign. So if you can picture the Hollywood sign, it's about 3/5 of that. If that doesn't work for you, it's about 2 times as tall as a giraffe. So like 2 giraffes. Maybe that makes, or about half as long as a bowling alley. Maybe that makes the most sense. I think bowling alleys is probably like the most common measurement form that we can use. So about half the length of a bowling alley or 2 times as tall as a giraffe. So all the boats are 32 feet. And then they're varying widths. And there are some boats that are like super wide and can get in super shallow. That's one thing that's crazy about these boats that I'm skipping around a little bit here, but that I didn't realize is a lot of the fishing you're trying to get right up against the beach, and there's some of these boats that can get down into like literally feet of water, 2 feet, 3 feet of water, to the point where you could jump off your boat and be at like waist length in the water, and your boat is able to like drive around in that amount of water. Now, I said there are the 2 types of boats, the fiberglass and the aluminum. There are also 2 other differentiates: prop boats and jet boats. Now, prop stands for propeller. Let's throw to this graphic here to show you the difference. There's a prop boat that, the prop spins, and that's how you generate movement on the boat. And then there's the jet boat that uses jet technology. And this graphic, I think, really clearly and accurately shows how jet technology works. And the jet boats are, of course, better. You can get shallower, you can drive faster. So the aluminum jet boat is the peak of gill netter technology. Now, if we stay here on this graphic, let's take a look at this boat here. Now, inside the front of the boat there, that area is what we would call the forecastle, which is where your bunks are. Typically 4 bunks, and your heads pointed away and all of your toes almost touching. 2 bunks on bottom, 2 bunks on top. And that's where you sleep when you're able to sleep, which is usually not super often. Now, next to that, if we keep looking at that graphic, you can see that is called the house of the boat. And basically, that's a small area with a sink, small diesel stove, a little table, somewhere to drive the boat inside. And that's called the house. That's where you would eat your meals or, hang out if there was ever really any time to hang out. Now, on top of the house, we call that the flybridge. And the flybridge is where the skipper will drive the boat from oftentimes when fishing. Not everybody does that. Some skippers are kind of wimps, and they just want to stay inside their nice, the nice house and not get all cold or wind whipped or sunburned. I don't judge those skippers, but I mean, they are wimps. If you fish on the Skybridge, you're just more of a badass. And then there's the back deck, which is the kind of the most important part of the boat, right? That's where all the fishing happens. That's where you spend the majority of your time. Now, on the back deck, if you look on the graphic here, you can see this is the reel, which is a giant spinny thing that the net goes on. And as you can see on the graphic here, the net will come out from the back of the boat and go into the water. And then if we go on to the next graphic here, you can see eventually you can put it on something called a tow line. And now your net is in the water, and your boat can kind of pull your net around to try to put it in the path of the salmon. Now, once you have some salmon in the net, and let's go to the graphic here of the net here. Here you can see, so there's a cork line, there's the mesh, and then the lead line along the bottom, and the salmon will swim into that, and you can see the graphic of that there. And so once there are some salmon caught in that net, you'll use a hydraulic system on the reel to start to pull the net back in. And as the net comes in, you will do something called fish picking, which is the act of, you guessed it, taking the fish out of the net. Now, sometimes they're easy. There's just a fish sitting in the net, and you just grab its head and you pull it right out. Sometimes they're all wrapped up and fucked up, and then people will call that it's in a basket. There's also probably like other terms, but we don't need to get too into the weeds with the whole fishing terminology. So you're picking the fish out of the net and sucking the net back onto the reel. And once all of the fish are on the deck and you have the net back in, what do you do with them? Well, you have to store them. And so below the back deck, there are holds. And you can see here on the graphic, you put those fish down into those holds. And the holds have water, and there's a system that they call a reefer system. Now, you probably thinking to yourself, reefer system, is that some sort of 1950s era anti-marijuana coalition to try to scare youth out of the wonders of cannabis? No, it's just a refrigerating system that chills water so that the fish can stay cold, so that they're the highest quality fish for you to consume later. So those fish will go into these basically little cold water refrigerators below the deck, and then you just do that a bunch more times, and that's basically how the fishing boat works. So now I feel like, with the help of those really excellent graphics, shout out the company that I used to make those. It was expensive, but I think it was worth it to be able to really explain to you guys how these gill netters work, and for you guys to be able to picture and conceptualize how that works. Now, one of the other questions that I get a lot about fishing, and at the end of the show, we're going to do a Q&A section, but nobody asked about this, and I feel like it's an asked about question. People are always wondering, so is there like a bathroom on the boat? And the answer to that is, on my first boat, there was no bathroom. On the boat that I worked on this year, there was a bathroom that we did not use except for it as a storage closet. And there's a lot of boats that do that have a toilet but just use their toilet as a storage closet. There are some boats that have a toilet that works. But a lot of the boats that I've come into contact with, the preferred method is the bucket system. That's another fishing terminology, shit bucket. No, that's not really a fishing terminology. It's what you call it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just like a bucket that you shit in. And people are usually kind of horrified about that, but it's really not that bad. It can actually be quite delightful. In fact, let's go to that video now. Here's a little video of a shit bucket. You can see there's a toilet seat on there. And, on a calm, beautiful day with a sunset, warm breeze around your nether regions, it can be a delightful place to make brown, to use the restroom. When the weather is cold, windy, rain is coming at you sideways, the boat is rocking around in all directions, and you're holding onto the bucket for dear life so that it doesn't fall over, then it can definitely be one of the worst bathrooms that I've ever used. But, sometimes using the shit bucket can be actually quite nice. Can be really actually quite nice. Now, the other thing people want to know about is well, what about showering? And I have heard, shout out the fishing vessel, the Wendy Sea. They have a shower on their boat. And I have heard of some boats that have showers on them. I have to say most boats, I don't think I've heard of having showers. But, typically in another year you could go to the tender, which, I'm going to explain more about, but I've referenced before, which is like a bigger boat where you drop your fish off, and you could use one of their showers. During all of the COVID things, you couldn't do that. So for me, it was 6 weeks of no showering. My hair has never been grosser. I was disgusting for sure. You wipe yourself with baby wipes as best you can. It's really not going to get the kind of level of filth that 6 weeks of commercial fishing is putting on your body. I did take one river shower, which was really refreshing and quite nice. But you do have to think that that's the river that people are throwing their shit buckets into. So, also kind of gross. Anyways, so the bathroom shower situation, I think that's where people really sometimes lose their steam. They're like, it sounds kind of cool, and then they think about shitting in a bucket and not showering for 6 weeks, and for some people that's a turnoff. For me, it's just oh yeah, I don't know, it's fine. I really fairly unaffected by it. So anyways, that's kind of the summary of the boats, the gill netters. So I feel like we have a little bit of a better understanding about the boats. We've put our journalistic foundation. Now we understand about the boats. Now we're going to move to talking about the sustainability and kind of how the fishing works a little bit more. And before we do that, let's throw to a video to show you guys a little bit of kind of what it looks like from the house of the boat or in the cabin of the boat during a rough weather day. So we'll go to that. So that gives you a little idea of, kind of how rough the weather can be. You've seen kind of how beautiful it can be, but it also can get, pretty choppy, and you can definitely get thrown around on those little boats and stuff. I'm lucky enough that the first year I went up there, they were like, do you get seasick? And I was like, actually, I've really never spent any time on a boat. I really went into it so half-cocked. It was just someone was like, hey, there's this thing you can do in Alaska, and you can make a lot of money doing it. I'm like, in Alaska, being outside, let's do it. Then I got up there and I was like, oh, yeah, I never really thought about if I get seasick. I'm lucky enough that I don't. But a lot of people do get seasick because you can get thrown about quite a bit when the winds pick up. Now, I think the thing a lot of times when you tell someone, oh, I do like commercial fishing, they kind of think of the like deadliest catch, big crab boats out in the Bering Sea in the middle of winter. And that's not, what this fishery is about. The thing I always tell people is that like a lot of the time when you're fishing, you can always see land. Like you're out on the water for 6 weeks and you don't go on land, but you can always kind of see it. You're not just like way out in the ocean where it's just like nothing but water all around you. And so I wanted to kind of explain a little bit how that works, and also, how they manage the fishery, because I think that's kind of interesting and cool. So let's, again, I shouldn't have spent so much of my fishing money on these graphics, but I just felt like it was worth it to tell this story in the way I wanted to tell it. So let's go to those graphics again and explain a little bit about the sustainability here. So now, basically, the way it works is there is a biologist and his team that are located on each river. Now, they are there and they are counting the salmon using technology and whatnot, and they are estimating and counting how many salmon are escaping, meaning making it from the ocean up past the fishing area, up the river, and so they're monitoring that. Now, based off of that, how many salmon have made it up the river, they then will give fishermen periods of time that they can fish. So at the beginning of the season in June, they might say, hey, you guys can fish for 4 hours today from 12 noon till 4 p.m. And you get to fish for those 4 hours, and then they will continue to monitor the situation. And as more and more fish escape up the river, they will give fishermen more and more time to be able to fish. And I've heard it described even that in a way the fishermen are a tool for the biologist, for the Department of Fish and Game, to basically make sure that there isn't a problem with overescapement where too many salmon make it up the river, which could also wreak havoc on the ecosystem. Too many dying fish in the lake or in the river can cause problems. And also through effective management and making sure that there is a good escapement every year, that is how they keep it sustainable, where they've grown these runs to be really, really large runs, healthy runs. And so that's kind of what the scientists are doing. Now, if we look here at this next graphic, you can see there's the there's the river and there's the mouth of the river, and there's basically like an imaginary box, as you can see here on the graphic, and in this box is where you're allowed to fish in. So a lot of the fishing happens right there along those lines, because that's the area where you have the best chance to catch the fish. And so there's a north line, the west line, a south line, at least in the Igigik River. I can't speak exactly to how all of the districts are set up in different rivers. And so you are trying to get your net as close to the front of that line as possible to catch the maximum amount of fish. Then there are the Alaska State Troopers who are using airplanes, helicopters, small skiffs, and larger fishing boats to go up and down the line and make sure that people aren't fishing over the line. And if they catch you fishing over the line, it can mean that you get a ticket, which could cost you $10,000 or something. It's not like a little speeding ticket. It's expensive, and you have to give those fish away. So it's a little bit of a game where you're trying to get your net exactly as close to the line without going over as possible. Now, some fisheries are quota fisheries, which is basically like your permit gets you how many fish you're allowed to catch. So, your permit says you can catch, 5,000 pounds of fish this day. And so once you catch 5,000 pounds, you stop fishing. The way the Bristol Bay fishery set up is it's what is called a derby fishery, meaning the biologists will give you these opening times, and then it's just basically whoever can catch the most fish can catch the most fish. And so the derby fisheries, it's a lot more competitive, and there's some ability to make some more money, I believe. Look, I fished for 3 years. I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. If any real fisherman is watching this and is like, what the fuck, dude? This is a stupid video. You're not explaining this well. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to explain commercial salmon fishing to all of my Bay Area super liberal friends who don't know anything about it, okay? I'm just doing my best, all right? Doing my best. So that's kind of how the fishing works. So the biologists, as I said at the beginning, it'll be like you get 4 hours and then you have a day off. As it increases, it'll start to be like 2 6-hour periods a day. So you'll drive out for an hour, you'll fish for 6 hours, you'll put all those fish below the deck. The fishing period will end. You'll drive back to the tender, which is a larger boat, typically maybe one of these crabbing style boats. It's a bigger boat where you offload your fish. You can also get fuel and water from them, and then you have to clean the whole boat. Maybe you have time to throw the anchor, take a nap for an hour or two. Then it's time to drive back out. You fish for another 6 hours, drive back, deliver those fish, clean the boat, throw the anchor, sleep for a couple hours. Then you start fishing again. Then it'll go to 2 8-hour periods a day. That's when the sleeping really gets brutal and you really are getting like an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours of sleep. Because also sometimes you have to do things like, there's a big hole in your net and you have to mend that. Or, you have to go get fuel and that takes extra time. Or, something breaks on the boat and you have to work on that. And it's in those times that it's really like some of the hardest fishing. And so those then eventually when the biologists say that enough fish have escaped up the river, they will just open up the fishing to 24 hours and you're allowed to fish whenever you want to. And that can be a good thing because you can just fish the tides that you want to fish and then stop, take a little break, take a nap. It also does sometimes mean that you're fishing for 17 hours or 18 hours. Maybe you got a couple breaks in there, but it can mean for like longer continuous days. But it's, in my opinion, it's better. It's nicer once they open it up to 24-hour fishing, I think. So let me look at my notes here. I think that's pretty good. Pretty good thing about it. Let's move on to the next section. Let's see if I have a little video that I can throw to here. I'm not sure which one it's going to be, and then that'll take us to the next section. It's July 20th. My hair has never been grosser. I just brushed several dreadlocks out of it. There's all the boats. That's my old boat over there, the full scale. Okay, so one of the things that people are always interested in is the money, the guap, the dinero, the dollar bill, the dead presidents, the other money names, that kind of stuff. What's up with the money? And that's a relevant question, right? Like if you're going to do something that's like physically hard and mentally hard, you would hope that you get compensated well for it. And, if you are a skipper, if you own a boat, you can definitely make a shit ton of money. Now, it's expensive as hell to get into. I mean, buying a permit can be $100,000 plus. Buying a boat could be, if you get a decent boat, $300,000. If you get a brand new boat, it could be like $800,000. It's not cheap to get into it, but if you're a skipper, you get those things paid off, you can make some serious money. And there's a lot of skippers who do well enough that the rest of the year they're not really working. They travel, they do ski trips, or whatever. I mean, there's also lots of skippers who do work, but it can afford you that opportunity. It's a possibility. Now, I'm not a skipper, and I don't think I ever will be, but I can speak a little bit to the money of being a deckhand, the financial situation for being a deckhand. And that's, if you're watching this video thinking like, oh, maybe I'm kind of interested in like that opportunity, this is probably the relevant information for you. I mean, one thing I will say is like if you're a college student working in the fishing industry somewhere, even if you can't get on a fishing boat, but if you just work at a cannery or on a tender or something, it's a great summer job. Like you can make some really decent money, a lot better than, fucking, I don't know. I was a janitor at my college. And I mean, that was a good time. It was probably one of my favorite jobs. It was fucking cush. It was real easy. Shout out the GU, Gonzaga University janitor squad. But I didn't make very much money. And and the other thing is when you're up there, you're spending no money. So all of that money is saved, and then you could have it for the school year or whatever. So I definitely would recommend it if you're, like a college student, or if you're just a young person who wants to travel or like pursue a creative interest, you're trying to make it work in your band or whatever. You're painting or whatever, you're starting a YouTube channel, in which case, like, let's collaborate, like, I'm just looking for other YouTubers that are like trying to like push each other up, subscribe for a subscribe. Wow, this really got off track. Okay, so we're talking about the money part. So as a deckhand, you make a percentage of what the boat makes. So, the boat, say the boat makes $200,000. You as a deckhand will make a percentage of that. Now, that percentage could be somewhere between, 6% or as high as like 12%. If you're starting off, it's probably like more like 6 or 7%. If you've been in it for a couple years, it's maybe more like 8 or 9%. You're probably not getting up to that higher range unless you've been fishing for a long time and your skipper really thinks you're valuable, but you're making a percentage of that. So, let's say 8%, 8% of $200,000 is a number that I'll put up on the screen now because I can't do math in my head. So, that could be a decent amount of money. Now, how much your boat makes is based off of two factors. One, what the boat can catch, and two, what the price is going to be. Now, both of those things are not guaranteed, and you're not going to know what the result is until the end of the season for both. So that's one of the things about fishing is, the money is not guaranteed and it can be unstable. So, and I've met people who, have fished a season and walked away with $1,000 or, just paid for their plane tickets barely, that can happen. Now say your boat, catches your boat can catch, your boat can catch nothing, but if you're kind of a lower end boat, you're maybe catching 50,000 pounds, 70,000 pounds. If you're doing a little better as a boat, you're catching 100,000 pounds, 150,000 pounds. If you're a higher end boat, kind of in that top 10%, you're catching 200,000 pounds, 300,000 pounds. If you're in that, very top, top level, some of the top 10, 20 boats in the fishery or something, you're maybe catching 400,000 pounds or over, but not much more than that. I think there are a few boats who have caught like 500,000 pounds before, but that's about the top end, and that's pretty rare, super rare, I should say. And even to be a boat that's in that 300,000, 400,000 pound range, that's also pretty rare. It's pretty hard to get on a boat that's catching that many fish. but that's kind of the range. So to give you an example, the price last year I think was like $1.60 or around there. So if your boat caught 150,000 pounds times $1.60, 8%, you're making $15,000, $16,000 before taxes. I don't know, somewhere in there. Could be $20,000. I'm not a math person. All right, guys. I literally work as a fisherman. Okay, and I told you my other jobs were like at a health food store. So it's pretty clear I'm not a math person. But so, anyways, that's about you could make that. Now, if you're on a a boat that's more in that like 300,000 pound, 400,000 pound range in that top echelon, that's where there's like a huge financial possibility. I mean, $15,000 for a couple months' work is great, But if you're on a boat that's like one of these super high end boats, then you're talking about as a deckhand, you could be making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, which then that's like a teacher's salary for a year. I mean, that's fucking crazy. I mean, you earn it. It's hard. It's really, really hard work, but that's some like serious money. It's not easy to get onto those boats. But there is some real, possibility there. So that's kind of the way the money works, and kind of gives you example of the range. You could walk away with $5,000, $10,000. You could be 20 or 30. It really depends on how your boat does, what the price is. As I said, the price last year was around $1.60. The price this year is more like $1. So it went down by a bit. So means you make a little bit less money. But yeah, so that's hopefully that gives you a little insight into kind of like the financial side of it. I'm not giving you any like specific numbers, because there's also like a weird unspoken rule in the fishery, to my understanding, that you're not like supposed to say how much your boat caught. So just respecting that. There's lots of like interesting little kind of rules and things like that. But anyways, that's kind of a little insight into the financial side of things. Now, as I said, that was like kind of one of the questions I get the most, which rolls well into the next section of our show. We're doing a Q&A, which if you don't already engage with the show on socials, first of all, hit subscribe. Take a second. I haven't said it yet, but just hit the subscribe button. I really want to get to 100 subscribers. I'm at 26. It's not a lot. If you're enjoying the video, I mean, you could just give it a little subscribe. I mean, you don't even have to turn the notifications on. I'm just trying to get numbers here, guys. But yeah, hit the subscribe button. But if you also want to engage with the socials, like follow Laugh at Pat on Instagram. And on Instagram, I posted a little thing that I'm going to do a fisherman podcast. And I was like, are there any questions that I should answer? And so I got some questions from some Laugh at Pat fans, some Laugh at Pat observers. I don't know. Anyways, we have some questions, and so let's throw that first question up on the screen and get into a little Q&A. Right. So our first question is from URL_mom37, and first of all, I want to say congratulations on little LOL, and note to other potential parents or new parents, you could be a cool mom or a cool parent and give your children fun initials like URL or LOL. I mean, that's just fun. Like, if you're not doing that, what are you doing? So congratulations to URL_mom37 on brand new little LOL. And thank you for the question, which is, did I have to wear a mask and shelter in place? And, traveling up there, I definitely had to wear a mask and everything, and Alaska had some regulations, and I think I have a little video here that we can show of me in my mask in the airport. Definitely the weirdest airport experience I ever had. I think in 15 minutes at San Francisco International Airport, one of the worst and busiest airports I've ever been to, I made it out of my car, checked my bag, got through security and to the gate. And like when I showed up at security, it was like I like really caught them off guard. They're like, "Oh, there's a person here." So, anyways, you can see a little video there of how empty the airport was. I will say that the people on the plane, they had us separated, empty middle seats and whatnot. On the way there, the flight attendants were not nearly as on top of people about keeping their masks on as they were on the way home. On the way home, they were way more on people about keeping their masks on and everything. Once we got up there, we were supposed to, quarantine in the boatyard, which we, basically did. I didn't leave the boatyard, but people were, still going to the little stores where, you buy parts and rain gear and stuff. And then once you're out on the water, you're kind of quarantined on your boat, basically. And there was some stuff that you were supposed to do, like take everybody's temperature twice a day for the first 2 weeks and stuff, which we kind of did. No, we definitely did it. But generally, people, you could definitely tell COVID stuff was affecting how things were up there. You couldn't go into town. The bars weren't really open like they usually are in Naknek, and people were, wearing masks when you were leaving the boatyard and stuff, but not taking it necessarily as seriously as I saw people taking it, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So our next question comes from Jay Gregorio 123. We'll throw that question up there. I want to say a special shout out to Jay Gregorio for having me in his IG prof pic, means a lot. Shout out JG. Love that you're still rocking that pic. And he asked, what was the COVID response by the fishing industry and Alaska? Now, before the season, I was kind of wondering if the season would get canceled at the beginning of the COVID stuff, but I think, it's such a valuable industry. The state of Alaska was not going to let that happen, especially when it's food collection. It's really essential work, a little more essential than keeping the dispensaries and the liquor stores open, which, hey, I'm all for it. Those are essential in their own way, but definitely a different level of essential. And they did have requirements about having paperwork showing that you were an essential worker. When I showed up in Alaska, nobody was checking that. Later, they, asked that you get tested before you come. There was free COVID testing for essential workers in the Anchorage airport. And I know that the canneries and stuff, all of the people who were coming to work on the fish processing plants, they were getting tested when they arrived in Naknek. And, I think that there were some problems in the processing plants and, with the quality control people and stuff who work on the tenders. But generally, I think they did a pretty good job of isolating those cases and keeping things running, kind of efficiently and well. And, there were some new regulations. Typically the boats that we deliver to the tenders, you can go on there. And that wasn't allowed this year. But it wasn't too crazy, I would say. So let's go to the next question, who comes from Matt Moore 190. He asks, what is the biggest fish you ever saw? First of all, I want to say, hello, Matthew, and a lot of love and hellos to all of the East Coast Moore family. I still would love to come out and visit again soon. Thank you for the question, Matthew. The biggest fish I ever saw, I'll throw this photo up, which is the photo I used when I asked the question. This was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, maybe the second biggest fish that we caught this year, which is a king salmon. The kings can be way bigger. The sake are usually typically more like 2 to 6, maybe 8 pounds, 10 pounds at most. This was, like a 20-pound, maybe more, 30-pound fish. And I would say I haven't seen much bigger than that. That's about around the biggest I've seen. I've heard of people catching, really crazy kings that are just giant. but I haven't seen that. So that's kind of the biggest fish. The next question comes from C. O'Neill 2. Let's throw that question up there. Also, a special thank you to C. O'Neill 2, who is the man whose friendship and generosity kept the Laugh at Pat train running all summer while I was gone, kept all the videos posting and making sure the social media updates were going out. So a special thanks to him for keeping this this Laugh at Pat experience coming to its 26 avid subscribers. And he asked, how many wet dreams did you have? So first of all, apologies to my mothers if they're watching this, anyone who thought this was a family program. Look, this shit's going to get real. It's about realness here on the Laugh at Pat program. Let's be honest, I was smoking out of a water pipe in the Real Fake Facts intro of the first video, so if you didn't understand that it was not a family program, it's a little bit on you. Well, if you've watched the rest of this podcast, you heard me describe the size of the boat and the close quarters. And, if your mind didn't go there, you might have realized that there's not a lot of place for alone time, not a lot of opportunity for release or relaxation, if you catch my drift. So, if you're a virile young man, I hear this isn't my personal experience, but like friends and friends of friends I've heard have say, 6 weeks of no opportunity for such typical relaxation or alone time that you might normally spend, that could build up to some kind of adolescent levels of tension that the body takes it upon itself to relieve for you nocturnally. And, friends of friends that I've heard say that sometimes happens on the fishing boat once or twice a season. I think my friend who Cameron has, who C. O'Neill 2 has talked to, that friend had a streak of, at least once every fishing season, and that friend also continued that streak this fishing season. So hopefully that answers his question. Hopefully it wasn't too awkward for all of you. We'll move on to the next question. Let's throw that one up from Huska Brew 17. And he says, yo, is this a photo of a dude named Robert? No. You asked that question of an account called Laugh at Pat, filled with photos and videos all centering around Patrick. I'm not quite sure how the intense amount of Pat branding and marketing went over your head. Maybe that's on me. I kind of feel like it's on you. But yeah, the answer is no. It's not a photo of a dude named Robert. It's a photo of a dude named Pat. Hence, Laugh at Pat. So thank you for the question, Huska Brew. Let's put the next question up here. From KTJ91, she asks, where do you go to cry? As in reference with C. O'Neill 2's question, not a lot of place for alone time. You could quietly cry in your bunk at night if you'd like. You could take a quiet moment on the back deck and stare out into the sun and, say that you got the sun in your eyes and shed a tear that way. Mostly though, you're just too damn tired to cry. You're just too damn tired to cry. Also, there are lots of fishing boats, mine included, that are probably, more progressive than the stereotype, but generally, the structure of masculine culture and, tough, crusty fisherman culture, not really a safe space for tears. So I'm guessing on a lot of boats, not a lot of good cry opportunities. So hopefully that answers your question, KTJ91, and also a happy birthday, early birthday to you. Well, let's see, when does this video come? Right around now. Happy birthday to her. The last question comes from Shreddy Bear. Thank you for your question and for supporting Laugh at Pat. I hope life finds you doing wonderfully. And his question is, how did you get into it, and what is the longest you went without sleep? The how did I get into it is a fun one. It all happened at a wedding. I had just gotten back from 7 months of traveling in Central and South America, and I met a girl who I fell in love with, who you might recognize as Dr. Proska from Is This Cute? And I had skipped my flight home and spent the last 2 months just charging shit to my credit card and was very broke. And the first thing I did when I got back was went to a good friend of mine's wedding. And, at that wedding, I met his mom's brother's new wife's son. And, basically it was the end of the wedding. I had rolled a jazz cigarette, a joint, as they call it, a bit of marijuana. And I was going to smoke said joint, and I asked this young gentleman if he would like to join me. And he was like, yeah, sure. And so we were smoking a joint, shooting the shit. I was telling him about my travels and how I wanted to travel more, but I was so broke now. And he told me about, basically the whole fishing thing in Alaska and how it's kind of, he knew people who used that money to travel, and, was just kind of telling me about the whole thing, and it sounded really cool. So I asked for his email, and he became kind of my commercial fishing Yoda and helped kind of guide me and helped me find the Facebook group where I found my first job, and just gave me advice and insight into what I was getting myself into. And I saw the financial opportunity to be able to use that money to travel more, to pursue my relationship with this Dr. Proska, not a real doctor yet. And so I decided to pursue that. So yeah, people always say marijuana is a gateway drug, and in this way, it was a gateway to a career. So yeah, weed can get you a job sometimes, or a job opportunity. Let's not forget that. That's an important real fake fact. And so basically marijuana and weddings and being broke is how I got into commercial fishing. Now, the longest I ever went without sleep is, that's a good question. I feel like it's probably only like 22 hours or 23 hours. I feel like there was maybe like a period where it was like 22 or 23 hours where I didn't really sleep. It's more the stacking of like lack of sleep where, just days of like, where you have like 2 2-hour naps, and then it becomes like 1 1-hour naps, and then it's like you had a half an hour to lie down and you never really fell asleep, and then you have 2 hours later to sleep, and then it's just like day after day after day of that, and kind of how that compounds itself. But it's never anything crazy where it's like I haven't slept for 3 days. So it's it's rough. It's probably like you could go a week and be like, oh, I slept 8 hours in a week sometimes. But yeah, it's not usually like a super number of days in a row kind of a thing. But yeah, it's definitely the lack of sleep is like the hardest part for sure. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your guys' question. Thank you guys all for giving the questions and writing in, contributing to this Q&A section of the podcast. We're gonna wrap things up. I'm gonna wax poetic a little bit about what it is that I love about fishing besides the kind of nuts and bolts that we've talked about so far. But first, I have a couple little time lapse and videos that I wanted to put together and show you guys from leaving Alaska, flying out of King Salmon, the airport where we fly out of when we fish, and flying in Alaska. And so let's take a look at that, and then we'll come back for some final thoughts.
Flight 1505 from Milwaukee, 200 flickering screens, each of us streaming a different movie, exploding with gunfire from black limousines, or beaming with rainbows and romance, or flashing with galloping steeds. I see lipstick and blood, and Noah and the flood. I see crazy and wondrous deeds. Together we soar.
All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed that little bit of aerial footage of Alaska from some of the flights I took, from King Salmon to Anchorage, and then into Anchorage on the way up from Seattle. Alaska is just a beautiful place, and you kind of, when you're flying over, you want to capture a moment of that. The music during that little sequence was a clip from one of my mother's songs off her new album, Ordinary Beauty, The Bedroom Tapes, which is available now on Spotify. If you search Ordinary Beauty, The Bedroom Tapes, or Laura Fannin, you can find that and listen to her album. So thank you to her for letting me use a little bit of her music there, and definitely let me plug and recommend one more time that you check it out, because I think it's really good, and I think it's badass that she made it herself, and yeah, she's just really cool. So you can check that out, or you could purchase a hard copy CD via her. I don't know exactly how that works, but you can message me and we can figure it out if you want the hard copy CD. And that's kind of the end of the podcast. I think it's fitting to end with some of that like kind of aerial footage of Alaska, because the first time I flew up, I remember I was shocked immediately flying up from Seattle, and I came in, it was twilight, and just seeing these endless mountains, endless snow-capped mountains, and I had never quite grasped how wild Alaska is. It really, it feels like a frontier place in a way nowhere else I've been has felt. And yeah, it's just, I haven't gotten the chance to travel through Alaska and see a lot of it. I've gotten to just basically go up for work. I got to visit Katmai National Park, which is right by where we fish. So I haven't seen much of Alaska, but every year I've gone up, I've just fallen in love with the place more. It's so wild and so beautiful. And it's a special place, and I highly recommend visiting. And I think that's the thing, today I was explaining a lot of like the nuts and bolts of fishing, and and a lot of the like hard parts about it and everything. And I think sometimes that stuff is kind of fun to talk about, but I think what's kept me coming back is it's not the moments of like being super tired and grumpy and in pain or whatever. There's just these little moments of beauty, and there's something so special about getting to live out on the water like that. And where the river that we fish in is not particularly beautiful. It was described to me when I was asking my fishing Yoda about, I was like, wow, fishing in Alaska, it must be gorgeous. And he's like, it's kind of flat and brown, which is kind of true. But there's just these little moments where, you see a bear walking along the beach, or, you see a bald eagle fly overhead. You're driving out and you see a little pod of beluga whales breaching, and there's just these little moments of intense beauty that are so special. Outside of the wildlife even, it's just there's all the days of shitty weather, but then there's just a brilliant, incredible sunset, and the texture of the water, as the light is reflected off of it, and the clouds in the sky, and the sky up there is just it's so big. There was a moment from the last the year before last, where we were driving to go anchor up and just gliding through the water, and out on the horizon, the direction that we were driving, it was dusk. It was this like that orange light along the horizon, the last grasps of day before total night begins, and we're driving towards that, and the water was like this silky black texture, and I was sitting on the front of the boat, and I turned around, and behind us it was like fully night. The moon had risen, like the stars were coming out, and the duality of the fact that like the sky was so large that in one part it could be total dark night, and in the other part that it was still this last little bit of dusk. It was just, I don't know, it was something that I'll never forget. And there's just those little moments like that. There's these birds that I just learned the real name this year called Arctic terns. I always called them sexy seagulls because they just look like sleek, sexy seagulls, and they fly way better. And they're just like, they kind of look like a seagull, but way better. And they're, just a moment where it's like, you're watching this tern like follow the boat, and you're getting to really like observe it, the way it flies and then dives for the water for some food. And it's just these little opportunities and little moments like that I think are what for me have made it such a meaningful experience. And I feel, super lucky to have, stumbled into this. It was definitely never part of the plan. But discovering commercial fishing has really like changed my life. I don't think I would have been able to like pursue my relationship with my partner if it weren't for some of the financial freedom that fishing gave me. I've gotten to travel and see more of the world than I think I would have been able to if it weren't for the fact that I found fishing. The freedom of, what it's been able to do for me financially has also helped me be able to pursue my little creative projects, to have the time and energy to be like, I'm going to make it this YouTube channel. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I found fishing. So it's something that I'm super grateful that I found that has changed my life. It's something I'm not going to do forever. But I feel super grateful for, and the, those little moments that I described, and there are 100 more that I could go on about. Those are something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And it's just an opportunity to be out on the water, to be outside so much every day. It's just not an opportunity that comes around very often, and I feel really grateful to have gotten it. And as my kind of fishing Yoda said, maybe I already said this, he said, if you think you'll like it, if it sounds like something that appeals to you, you'll probably like it. And I that advice was incredibly true. And so if you're interested, I don't know, think about it. It's a interesting opportunity. You're not guaranteed to have an amazing experience, but you could. So hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight into the Bristol Bay fishery, where your wild-caught Alaska salmon comes from, what the reality of being a commercial salmon fisherman in Alaska is. So hopefully that was interesting, possibly funny. And thank you guys so much for watching. That's the podcast. Go check out my mom's album. Hit subscribe. Guys, come on, 26 subscribers. Let's get a little more subscribers than that. Like, we could do a little bit better than that, please. So tell your friend, just tell 74 of your friends to subscribe to the channel. That's not that hard. Just tell 74 of your friends to subscribe to the channel. I'm just like, let's get to 100 subscribers. Is that too much to ask? 100 subscribers. Let's do it. So you subscribe, tell 74 of your friends to subscribe, and we should be good. And then I'll stop asking about it. But yeah, subscribe, follow the social, all the things. Thank you for watching. That's it, and Good night, good afternoon, or good morning, or whatever time you're watching this. I'll talk to you guys next time.